Okay, this is Homer Cocktail doing some vlogging. Alright then. Hello folks, this is the Homer Cocktail Hour. Yes it is. The Homer Cocktail Hour. And today's topic will be vegetarianism. What else will it be? Boycotts. What else will it be? What else will it be here? Let's get this camera situated first of all. Yeah. And we'll be eating a little bit here. I'm breaking a couple of these little boycotts. This is good. This is good. This is okay then. The Homer Cocktail Hour. Grapes. Uvas no. Uvas si. Coors. Si. Corn dog. Si. Hamburguesa. Sí. You get the gist. Oh, one more change. Let's do one more change real quick. Let's take this thing down. Aha! What is that? What is this thing over here? Oh, baby! What is this place? Prison Planet? Where are we? Where are we, man? The video is about vegetarian issues, boycotts, and other stuff. Uh-oh. Okay, this is the dog that got sprayed by the skunk last night. And out there, the sun is setting. Here's another poopy, and here's a stalk growing toward the sky. Okay, this is a special edition of Homer Cocktail doing some vlogging. Okay, we're gonna talk about principle. We're gonna talk about we're going to talk about boycotts. And before someone complains about me using copyrighted music there. We're going to turn off the classical soothing music in the background. This one might go a little longer than 10 minutes. Usually I'll cut myself off at 10 minutes. But this time around, I'm going to talk about vegetarian issues. And we're going to take some side roads. We're going to go along with the tangents. I might go ahead and put this at Homer Cocktail 24, where I've done vlogging, and I've done some vlogging that's an hour long. My Homer Cocktail 15, I have lengthy videos. They're music videos, and I have couple of stories that I've recited. But this time we're going to go ahead and not pay attention to the 10-minute self-imposed limit. So let's start. Without further ado, let's pull out the smartphone here. And let's go ahead and swipe along. Okay. So, principle. I cut down on red meat back when I was going to Pitzer College as a matter of principle. Partly as a matter of principle. And we're going to go into some of the reasons why, but initially here, we're going to skip the reasons. We're going to skip the reasons, and we're just going to swipe along. Okay, if you guys can remember, recently Chris Martin, the guy from Coldplay, and the conscious uncoupling from Gwyneth Paltrow. He just was in the news recently, not only for a split, but he said that he eats meat again. So we'll get into that. Here's a picture of the guy. I graduated from Pitzer College in 2011. This is a copy of the diploma. I was set to graduate in '98, but my life got a little sidetracked, and we'll talk about that later, possibly. I was in their alumni magazine back in '98, in the spring of '98, and this is the cover of the magazine and the issue. And there's me inside right there. Pitzer College is known to have one of the better cafeterias in the country. According to the U.S. News and World Report, it's top 5. But one of the reasons is they stress health and vegetarian and vegan kind of dishes. Half their the cafeteria is basically split. So here we go, McConnell Dining Hall. Students enjoy menu selections ranging from stir-fry, pick your own fixings, pizza lunches, to build your own omelets. Vegetarian and vegan entrees are available at every meal. So on, so forth, so on, so forth. Dolphin-free tuna, the whole thing, right? I got arrested in the year 2000, and that's my mugshot right here. And a teacher from Pitzer College pressed charges on me. This is a teacher that had asked to use me as a reference so he could gain tenure, by the way. So it was a serious falling out where even on the stand he said I'd been one of his favorite students. When I wasn't able to graduate, I thought I was getting the runaround, and I thought I was getting a cold shoulder. And there were some other issues. My mom had emphysema, and she was practically on her deathbed in the autumn of '98 when I was supposed to graduate. She had plastic tubes down her throat, and in a forced respirator, and that was one of the side issues. Eventually, she passed away after getting a tracheotomy, a week after getting a tracheotomy in 2002. Okay, this is Gwyneth Paltrow, since we brought up Chris Martin. Conscious uncoupling. It's all in the language, isn't it? All in the language. Okay, Chris Martin, no longer vegetarian. I eat meat. See? And there the guy is. I eat meat. See that? Specifically, I eat meat, he explained. I was a vegetarian for quite a long time, and then, for various reasons, I changed. My daughter's vegetarian since she was born, so I keep getting tempted to go back. I don't eat meat very much. Or something along those lines there. We're going to talk about a fallacy, though, before we go down the wrong road here. There's something called appeal to authority, which basically, when you try to justify your actions by saying, hey, well, someone out there in authority, in this case it might be a rock star, someone out there in authority does it, and that makes it right. Okay? And there's also something called a bandwagon fallacy, which is pretty close, except for it's not necessarily an individual in authority. It's, hey, everyone else is doing it. Okay? But what I'm trying to emphasize is think for yourself. And there's the Beatles song, Think for Yourself. This is a land of liberty. We have freedom. They say great minds think alike. And sometimes there's just a vibe out there, whatever the vibe might be. And you catch the same vibe as someone else. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, I was right of center, I would say, in the early 90s, late 80s. I was brought up in the church-going family. And then I started to research things like scientific creationism, and I started researching how the Bible was put together, and I just started to disagree with the ministers of the churches where I was going. So I went basically from right of center to left of center very quick. And now I'm trying to find center filled. Center filled, you know. I'm trying to get back to the center. And this is a metaphor for me. John Fogerty was this radical guy that was part of Creedence Clearwater Revival. And I was just listening to the song the other day on the radio. It sounded really good. Senator's Son, or what is it? Fortunate Son, that's it. It ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no senator's son. Yeah. Well, later on in the 80s, he kind of went a little more mainstream, and I think this is a metaphor, center field. You know, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play today. Put me in, coach, I'm ready to play today. Look at me. I can be center field. I'm trying to get a job, and I was more than willing at the time to do some of these what seemed to be left of center things. Go to third world countries and be a volunteer for the Peace Corps, or, you know, other various organizations. But let's go ahead and you know, check out another set of lyrics. Middle of the Road by the Pretenders. You know, middle of the road is trying to find me. Very first line there. See that? Sometimes you look for the center, sometimes it looks for you, right? This is a little, it's not one of the more popular songs of the 80s, but I like this one. Another metaphorical thing, too, by the Breakfast Club. Right on track, right? I could move to the left for a while, I could slide to the right for a while. I could get up and back, right on track. But this right on track, is that going to get you back? Okay. Do vegetarians live longer? Okay, that's what we're talking about here. Do vegetarians live longer? We're going to talk about not just the health issues, but other related issues having to do with this vegetarian thing. Yes, they do. Vegetarian men in the study, 9.5 years longer. Women, 6.1 years longer. Okay? You live longer if you're vegetarian. Okay, so there's a health reason to go vegetarian. And I found this article in Time online. It's a lower blood pressure, lower risk of death, better moods, less chance of heart disease, lower risk of cancer, lower risk of diabetes, less likely to be overweight. And there's a few other health reasons to do with vegetarianism. This is why I was thinking about not doing this video on my Homer Cocktail 24 vlog site. Basically, on that vlog site, I convert everything to black and white. But for what I'm talking about here, it's kind of important to understand the mentality, and all images in life really should not be pleasing. Life magazine used to be a big deal before the internet came around, because they were able to show the realities of war, for example. Well, this is another reason to go vegetarian. If you believe that animals suffer very badly during the process of creating our food, well, that's a reason to go vegetarian as well. So here's a cow. I watched this band's video, by the way, not this, but something like it, called Better Off. Not Better Off Dead was my favorite movie. That's a Freudian slip there. It's called Faces of Death, not Better Off Dead. And they were showing some animal slaughter. You know, this documentary was about how different people die for the most part, but it opens up by showing some animal slaughtered. And this video was banned in many countries, not in the United States, but real graphic stuff. And it'll move you to change your life if you're teetering on these kind of issues anyway. If you're teetering on going vegetarian for the sake of health reasons, well, something like this might tip you over to the side of vegetarianism. Here's a pig, which, you know, becomes pork. hanging, and they drain with the blood. This is a famous picture with Sarah Palin, and the guy in the back is stuffing turkeys into this machine. Very famous picture there. A very famous video. You can check that on YouTube probably. So these places like McDonald's, what are we to do? What are we to do, right? You have this incredible demand for tasty food. You have this population that's getting bigger. We have a finite amount of land. Okay? You get Burger King out there. You get Arby's. You get all these places that need all this meat. Okay? Now the images from Faces of Death and some of the stuff you can find online. Images are very powerful. Okay? Right? The psychology of persuasion, right? We're talking about Freud here. I had a Freudian slip a little while ago when I said Better Off Dead. The satire, the fucking funny movie, instead of Faces of Death. But this is a picture of Sigmund Freud. Okay, when I was younger, I used to like this cartoon called The Far Side. And originally, The Far Side was Nature's Way. It was written by Gary Larson. He's from the Pacific Northwest. And he was very fond of cows. Very fond of cows. I'll read the caption while I show you this. A few cattle are going to stray off in the morning. And tomorrow night, a stampede is planned around midnight. Okay, I gotta get back. Remember, when we reach Santa Fe, I ain't slaughtered. See that? So, Gary Larson's very fond of cows in his cartoons. Right? Am I a happy cow? Right? See that? And he inverts situations a lot. Here's cows looking at people in a pasture. And they're going yakety yak, 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 yak. The cows are. Instead of going, we would go moo when we pass by cows, right? And here's chickens. It's not just cows, but here's chickens. Once again, inversion. This is at the Rubber Man factory. Usually you'd have men with rubber chickens, right? And then right here you have bears. This is animal waste management. That one right there. Where you have some bears dumping their waste into a man's home. So this is stuff I liked as a teenager, before I even would have considered cutting out red meat from my life. Here's another inversion. This is a dog, and the caption says, "And that's the hand that fed me." See? You're not supposed to bite the hand that feeds, right? There's a hand that feeds. And that's the hand that fed me. So you get these images, and it's not just the graphic, bloody images of the cow being slaughtered. It's Bambi. It's a cartoon. It's the Gary Larson. And at the end, the hunter has to grapple with shooting Bambi, right? And then we're going to talk a little about Orwell. George Orwell wrote during the 1940s a book about the future called 1984, where it's a totalitarian government. Everything's controlled and all the government agencies are inverted. The Ministry of Truth is about propaganda and lies, for example. But we're not going to talk about this Orwell just yet. We're going to talk about Animal Farm. Once again, humanizing the animals, so we feel for the animals, right? And there's political overtones in this one. And when Babe was released, I was going to Pitzer College in Claremont when this movie came out, and unexpectedly this Disney film got nominated for Best Picture. And supposedly in Japan, what happened there was vegetarianism went on the rise by like more than double. More than, people just stopped eating pork out there after this movie for some reason. And it's not just the cows and the pigs, it's the chickens. I live across the street from a chicken farm right now. Chicken run here. Okay, so here we have facts on meat and the environment. We talked about two of the issues about vegetarianism. We talked about the health Then we talked about the animal rights, the animal cruelty aspect. But let's now talk about the environment. A meat-based diet requires 7 times more land. See that right there? Okay, so basically, living on this finite planet Earth, let's go through these real quick. These are ecological reasons now. And what I'm talking about is the ecological footprint. How much acreage does it take for you to exist? That's what the ecological footprint is. If you live on a vegetarian diet, you're eating grains instead of cattle, for example. And it requires 7 times less land for people to live that way. There's 1 billion people, more than 1 billion people living in India right now, living off of basically grass. It's a very vegetarian out there. China lives off a lot of rice. So there's the 3 reasons. You live longer. You got the animal cruelty. Then you got the ecological footprint. Okay, those are 3 reasons to go vegetarian. Okay, let's go ahead and film me again as the sun sets behind me. We're in silhouette mode here. You can see my head there. Basically, I went to Pitzer College. I got in 1995, knowing there's a lot of vegetarians there. And I was somewhat disenfranchised and disturbed by some of the teachings at churches I was going to. And I was really open to this environment. And what you're going to see in some of these pictures is the metaphor as a music video of Blind Melon's No Rain, with a girl that's dancing around with a bumblebee outfit and she can't find anyone to like her. Well, I felt like that. Okay, that's the perfect metaphor for me. When I went to Pitzer, I really idealized the place. And I was thinking, okay, maybe this is the answer. Maybe this fucking place is the answer, right? Maybe this is Honolulu. Maybe this is Utopia, Camelot, right? And I'm going to have fucking such a great experience, you know? I found the right way. I'm going to live longer. I'm going to live knowing I'm not cruel to animals, and that my ecological footprint's going to be good. And basically, I never said I was vegetarian, but I cut out a lot of red meat for those reasons. It started in spring of '97 when I went on this thing called Alternative Spring Break, and I went to the United Farm Workers headquarters in King County, and they had a vegetarian kitchen there, and Cesar Chavez was apparently vegetarian. He had studied Gandhi and everything, and I was there with a lot of vegetarian students, and it felt right. And I figured, okay, man, this might be the new thing. Now, leading up to this, I'd never wanted to be phony. And Kurt Cobain is quoted as saying, I'd rather be hated for who I am than to be loved for who I'm not. And I read the quote somewhere else, and he might have been quoting someone else, but people attribute it to Kurt Cobain as well. So when I went to a Bioneers conference the year before in '96, the autumn of '96, we stopped at Denny's, and it was me and a handful of female students, which is ironic because I went to Venezuela in '98, the fall of '98, and I was the only male there. It was real weird because these ecology classes seemed to be tilted towards females and, kind of a hippie element. And I remember having this conscious thought that I could order fish or chicken, which is acceptable by vegetarians, white meat by and large. I could do that and pretend I've been vegetarian, but I ordered a fucking hamburger. We're on our way to San Francisco, and this place is near Magic Mountain. Because, by the way, one of the girls that was there, I'd seen her the first week I was going to Pitzer. I saw her In-N-Out Burger. She's with her parents. Basically, hey man, if you see me off campus, I might be with my family, and I might be eating menudo or something. You know, my family likes Mexican food and pozole and that kind of stuff. So I started getting serious though. I figured, well, if I ever do it, I want to do it when I want to do it, when it's right. And that was in the spring of '97. And I never really told anyone besides a few close friends that were going through the same thing as me. I have this buddy that's Thai Cambodian, and his dad was a Buddhist monk. And he had gone vegetarian for a while at least, you know, for religious reasons. And there's another guy, his name's Buddha Jim, by the way. He's an Anglo, he converted to Buddhism. And he's on YouTube as Buddha Jim. Not Jim like the name Jim James, you know, Jim James. No, we're talking about Jim like a stone. And he went vegetarian for a short period. Then we got in an argument, actually, when I was drunk, and he ordered some meat nachos and stuff, and he had talked to some Buddhist monk or something, and the monk said, hey, the stuff exists, you don't have to be vegetarian, don't worry about it, right? And for some reason, you know, whatever the circumstance was, I was drunk and I felt betrayed, and we wound up getting an argument, and this was in the spring of '98. And by the time I got to Venezuela in the autumn of '98, one of the girls that went was a vegetarian. And for some reason, these issues seem to get divisive. You know, when there's a lot of people around, there's people that trip out, which is real weird because, hey man, you live longer, you know? There's an animal cruelty element, there's an ecological footprint. But for cultural reasons or whatever else, people will get ticked off, you know? And this girl, I had her in a couple of classes. It's starting to get dark out there, so, you know, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I hope it doesn't get dark too soon. This girl, though, I figured, okay, I'm going to give her moral support, and I'm going to eat vegetarian. And this was for the first few days while we were at the small retreat in Venezuela. And eventually we went to this town called Merida. And then eventually I figured, you know what, man? Too many people are wigging out. This had happened the year before when I went to Seattle and did a 3-week internship for the AFL-CIO. If it was for ecologists, maybe people would understand better, but this is labor-oriented stuff, right? So, at the internship in Seattle, I went the whole internship, basically, and ate, you know, freaking garden burgers and, you know, chicken and stuff that, you know, mainstream vegetarians are okay with. And then at the very end, when everyone went home, there was a few of us that stuck around. And my roommate wore leather jackets and stuff like that. Stuff that I was okay with a few years before that. And I had one fucking pepperoni pizza with the guy just to say, hey man, you're okay, we're okay, everything's cool, you know? But it becomes a sensitive issue of sorts. So let's continue along here. And you know, in Venezuela, I want to say, okay, fuck it, man. I don't need to go exclusively without red meat, which will trip people out as well. It starts to feel like a cult, and that's the whole thing. That's why I paused here. It starts to feel like a goddamn cult. Okay? Let's read the definition of what a cult is. It's a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. Okay. The second definition is misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. So it started to feel like a cult. Be part of this vegetarian community at times started to feel too cult-like. And we're going to talk a little about cults. Scientology is seen by a lot of outsiders to be a cult. And one of the nephews of L. Ron Hubbard was on Russia Today talking with Abby Martin about Scientology and some of these issues. This is the Heaven's Gate, the Hail Bop thing. The guys that committed mass suicide when that comet came around a while back. These guys were going to Disneyland and stuff and living it up, and then they committed suicide. The right of center place I went to was the Harvest Crusades. And that started to feel cult-like on the right. On a, right end of the political spectrum. Okay? Related out there is, so some of my friends got into Amway, which some people will say feels like a cult, or it is a cult, it's a pyramid scheme, or whatever. And I was okay with a lot of these people at the beginning, but that guy that I was talking about, this guy that I went to Chicago with, that joined Amway in a prior vlog, and these guys will teach you that someone's not your friend unless they join your Amway group. See here, you're at the top, and the mindless city's at the bottom. The money goes up, and the lies go down. See? And, hey man, maybe this is okay for some people, but this is seen as a cult to a lot of people. I have this girl that I adore that's on my Facebook. I'm not going to call this one a cult. I'm all for getting healthy and for committing to it, but people have called this one a cult, the CrossFit. And here's a joke, a cartoon about it. It says, okay, oh, you doing CrossFit? Please tell me more about your cult. I mean, workout program. Yeah. So, and then, related to this is like a Bernie Madoff right here, where it's not necessarily a cult, but you get a clique, and where something goes awry, leadership goes awry. Okay. These guys are called the Juggalos. Okay, these are really crazy fans of the Insane Clown Posse, and the FBI recently considered the Juggalos to be a gang. So if you're an adamant follower of a band called the Insane Clown Posse, the FBI might be tailing you. You see. So the school pitzer started not to feel right. I mean, I'll talk about it with the cultural immersion pretty soon. But the beginning, the honeymoon stage, felt great, and then eventually, it's a small school, and in the autumn of '98, when I returned from Venezuela, I'm like, hey man, I'm freaking out. It feels like everybody knows everybody's business, And I was in a magazine, right? I showed you earlier. So here's Truman having a beer with his buddies. And this is how my life started to feel, The elephant in the room sometimes was a vegetarian issue. And sometimes it was something else. But it felt contrived at some point. And it felt like being in the cult. And I couldn't escape. This is the bridge out of town from the Truman Show. The bridge is always out. If you remember, the bridge is always under repair. And they always make sure that the guy can't escape. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? There are some students that really go out there. And Pitzer's really known for their external studies programs. 75% of all Pitzer students go on an external studies program. And I went to Venezuela. But I was expecting I might be an international diplomat. And I was learning Spanish, and I was trying to learn how to live in some of these Latin American countries and other places. And maybe it happens for some people, but for me, it became that fake bridge out of town. And I realized, wow, man. Wow, this is just not happening. And I was talking about the Blind Melon video. This is clips from the video where the little bumblebee girl's dancing for everyone. They're like, screw you, get out of here. And eventually she finds a group of bumblebee dancers in this meadow, and that's how Pitzer felt to me at the beginning. I'm like, wow, these guys are really eclectic. They're really hip. They're really cool. And hey, people think of them as that still, as they're at the school and, you know, going through it for the first time. But for me, it's this. This is a wall that looks like clouds in the Truman Show. When he gets to the edge and he realizes it's a facade. The fucking thing's a facade, okay? In my experience, that's what it was. But Truman Burbank made it out somehow. Now, in real life, if this wasn't a comedy, I think the guys in that corporation would call the cops on him and try to have him arrested for any number of things that he did inside the dome. You know, he was breaking laws or whatever inside that dome, and they'd use the cops to fucking bust him and get him back so everyone could watch him again. That's just what I think. So anyway, I was a regular guy, and going to a place like Pitzer with really decisive political views, not to mention the vegetarian issue, it'll make you feel like a Frankenstein, you know? You know, you got the Frankenstein family, you know, it's a comical version called the Munsters right here, right? But then you get the crowd to Frankenstein's castle, you know? And, you know, this back here is the Pitzer family when things are going well, the way it felt. This is me after a year or two of going to Pitzer. And this is society as they treat people that are not mainstream. People that choose to live these alternative kind of lifestyles, not just vegetarianism. There's alternate religions, there's, you know, like I said, marginalized political beliefs, etc. So let's read some of these Pitzer reviews from Yelp. This is stuff you could check right now. Go to Pitzer College and Yelp. And you can read these. Pitzer claims to transcend patriarchy, single-mindedness, and stereotypes. However, the college dismisses any idea and student that doesn't fit into its anti-corporation, anti-white, anti-male mode. After 4 years of white guilting, I'm over its initial wonder. And that's the end of the party right there. You know, that's when you wake up and your face is in a pile of vomit and you're wondering, did I make out with that fat chick last night? You know, it's the same kind of feeling. This is past the honeymoon stage, and this is where I arrived. You know, I'm a white male. Let's see. Oh wow, I'm trying to show my face, but the sun's really going down out there, and I'm showing the camera straight on my face, and there's no more light at all. Okay then. Let's go outside. Let's just step outside. I'm going to make this an hour long. I have a couple of other hour-long videos, so. Here we got the stalk that we opened up with. Stalk going to the sky. The sun's already past the horizon back there. You get the face. You get the face behind the voice, unless you've watched other vlogs that I have. And then you get the face in those vlogs as well. And here's the phone right here, and there's the window. And it's hardly visible now, but as long as we're going through this phone, we'll go ahead and keep shining. This is better for the filming an iPhone, that it's darker anyway. Okay, the next one here. However, there's a silver lining if you weren't blah 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 Halloween. Blah 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 blah. Okay. I I thought there was some specific I wanted to read here, and maybe there is. Some of their current other failures include a horrible retention rate, horrible dorms for the cost of college, little ethnic diversity, unchallenging classes, and staff and faculty that don't support the student body. It doesn't feel that way at the beginning, or didn't to me, not necessarily. My second year there, people spontaneously painted murals all over the place. And then the faculty painted over a good deal of them. Not all of them. But there's an issue about, hey man, freedom of expression or whatever. And then let's see what this guy says at the end on this Yelp. In reality, not so great if you have to live in a shitty-ass Pitzer dorms with lame-ass Pitzer students. So this guy didn't have a good experience there. Okay, let's go to the next one. There are a couple of things to note about Pitzer College. True, it is a school that's just, quote, just a bunch of hippies with beamers. People often, unquote, people often see what we teach here in our workload and ask, why go to college when you could go to Pitzer? Compared to the other 5 Claremont colleges, we are the most lax. Our teachers offer the least amount of work. We like to emphasize sociology, which I still don't consider a real major, and intercultural studies. My major, by the way, is intercultural environmental studies. I want to be a global citizen, expand my horizons, and help the poor in third world countries. See, I was there too. All this is typically hippie leftist rhetoric that comes out of Pitzer students, as well as, quote, do you know where I could get some? And then insert the drug name here. Okay, so these are all on Yelp. Some of the stuff gets removed, by the way, this Yelp stuff. If you start talking crap about a college, this review has been removed for violating our content guidelines. Ditto. So some other people have stuff removed. I remember reading a while back on Yelp, someone posting a joke, and maybe this is one of them here. And the joke was, why do Pitzer students carry around their diplomas with them? Okay, why? Because so they could park in the handicap spots. Or why? Yeah, it's so funny. Anyway, so this one was not recommended. This one, but sometimes these are the most telling ones. This is one that's on Yelp that's not that's you know. Okay, it says basically. Let's go up here. I did not find the people on campus very intellectual, but more like hippies with beamers from rich families who like to do drugs. If you're a druggie, you will love Pitzer. There are so many drugs and so many drug parties on campus, you'll find druggie friends everywhere. Socially, I was too nerdy and intellectual to fit into Pitzer. The best thing about Pitzer is you do not have to take classes there. While I was at Pitzer, I took my class at Pomona College. Okay, let's go down to the end. I transferred to a very liberal but academic liberal arts school in the Midwest and was much happier. People at school were much more down to earth, and even if you were more conservative, they still treated you with respect. And didn't make fun of you or try to force you to do drugs. Okay, so that's okay, so basically, before I went to Pitzer, and we're exaggerating a little here, that we're characterizing. Before I went to Pitzer, I was clean cut. I was more like a Dan Quayle. Okay, I was more of a clean cut, you know, my eyes are bluish green. I was in management positions wherever I worked, usually handled cash and bank deposits and the whole thing. Eventually, hey, you'll think I should do some pot. I should be smoking some pot. And obviously there's other things besides pot that go around. But this is Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead. And eventually I grew my beard out. And I grew my hair out. And for a while I was thinking, yeah, man, thank God I get to know what the other half lives like. Now, eventually you return. And this is a little more of my attitude and everything right after Pitzer, you know. It's not full beard. It's a little more Scott Weiland than Jerry Garcia. It's not quite clean cut, but, you know, it's a little cleaner than I was. It's a little more mainstream, if you will. So let's see what mainstream says here. The ideas, attitudes, or activities that are regarded as normal or conventional, the dominant trend in opinion, fashion, or arts, belonging to or characteristic of the mainstream. Okay, so culture shock. We're going to talk about culture shock, especially reverse culture shock. Okay, I talked about the honeymoon phase when, hey man, I love all these hippies. All these hippies are cool, man. There are 4 phases. Honeymoon phase. Then you get the negotiation phase, where, there's language barriers, differences in hygiene, traffic safety, it says, and, anxiety or whatever. And basically, right here, it says excitement may eventually give way to unpleasant feelings of frustration and anger as one continues to experience unfavorable events. And that definitely happened to me in Venezuela and some other places, but the overall pitzer experience. Then there's an adjustment phase where you're kind of like, you know what, man? Here's how it's going to work. Here's how it's going to work. And you get a positive attitude, right? A little better attitude. And then the 4th phase is a mastery phase. And at that point, you're bicultural. Now, we're going to talk about reverse culture shock. Because it's very common when you study abroad, very common to start to see some place like your home country, the United States, as being bad. You start to see that, hey, Hugo Chavez was getting elected when I was in Venezuela in autumn of '98. And eventually, through Citco, you can check this out online, and Russia Today covered it. They give free petroleum to poor people in the United States. Does anyone know that? That's something you have to look up to find out. Okay? This is the guy that's called the American Taliban, who had, obviously, this reverse culture shock, where sometimes you never return, basically. You leave your culture, you get immersed into another culture, and sometimes you never come back. This guy's name is Lind. Okay? And with me, I was not that extreme, but hey, you got to be honest with yourself, you got to be honest. And I kind of identify with this character, the Kevin Costner character from Dancing with Wolves when he went Indian. He was sent out to the fucking middle of nowhere with no supplies. He had to get along with the locals. And when the cavalry finally got to his post, he was dressed in Indian attire, etc. And they wanted to kill him or jail him or whatever for changing his, habits and way of life. Here's a little more comic version. This is Stan Smith from American Dad. Right here, he's dressed in Indian attire, Native American attire, because he's a Redskins fan. He lives in Washington, D.C. But eventually, he goes to tailgate, and he realizes what the Native Americans went through. He sees his family having their Thanksgiving dinner through the window and empathizes. Okay? Alright, so we got the happy cow. And we like the happy cow and the holy cow. You're in this liberal school. Okay, man, we don't got to be so cruel, etc. We can respect other religions. And, the cattle in India, one of the reasons they don't kill cattle is it's a beast of burden, actually, which means it helps to plow the fields. If you kill the cow, you're not going to be eating anything in your fields. That's what I was told a long time ago. Okay, so we're going to talk about boycotts. Aquanet with the I can't say the word right ever. Chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. Basically, I learned about these when I started at Pitzer in the mid-90s. I was in a chemistry class. And this is destroying the ozone layer. There's a big hole over Australia. There's a disproportionate amount of people that get skin cancer there. And styrofoam as well. Coors. We have to boycott Coors because they had a problem with Hispanic laborers back in the 70s. And even though they resolved the issue, my sociology teacher, and he was a co-advisor, he still won't drink Coors. There's people that still won't drink Coors. And I have family that were in unions that wouldn't drink Coors for many, many years, even after the ban and boycott was lifted. Grapes. Uvas no. Uvas no means no grapes. The United Farm Workers during the 70s had a campaign against one of the growers. People were dying in the fields. Chavez said, there's blood in these grapes. Eventually, he fasted for something like 33 days, by the way. Eventually, the boycott was lifted, but people still won't eat grapes. Styrofoam. I was talking about the Aquanet with the aerosol cans. Well, styrofoam causes those CFCs as well. So if you're ever caught with styrofoam, it's like being caught saying a swear word in some religions or dancing in some religions. It starts to feel like a religion and or a cult, like I mentioned. And here's some more styrofoam cups. Those were igloos. These are cups. Makeup. A lot of makeup does animal testing. I don't know if Revlon still does, but one of the things that got me in a pitzer was one of my ethics teacher. I did a paper and a speech on animal rights, not just in her class, but in one of my communications classes. Procter & Gamble, we're supposed to boycott them. They make a lot of products. Here's one of their IAMS animal food products, Procter & Gamble there. They're also accused of being Satanists for some reason. I never understood the whole gist on that one. Toys. We're going to talk about dangerous toys. There are certain freaking toy companies we're supposed to boycott, for being dangerous. I think Hasbro might have been one of them at the time. Some of these toy manufacturers, and some of these. This is a doll in the middle of one of these cribs that's real dangerous. Ralph Nader, I watched him speak. I voted for him twice, once in '96 and once in 2000. I watched him speak at Pitzer College. He's speaking up for the community oaks, and the consumer advocate. Wasn't led into the debates in 2000, which I think that was I think it was a down mark in American democracy. He's talking about duopoly. Basically, he thinks Democrats and Republicans are on each other's side, and it's them against everyone. One of my friends used to have one of these shirts. It's a tank top. He used to love wear it everywhere. But I was talking about dangerous toys. There used to be a band called Dangerous Toys. This is The Cult, one of my favorite bands, Firewoman. We're talking about how things felt like being in the cult, but let's think about how you start to feel. Okay, wound up, can't sleep, can't do anything right, little honey. Oh, since I set my eyes on you, I tell you the truth. Twisting like a flame in a slow dance, baby. You're driving me crazy. Come on, little honey. Come on now. Fire. Well, that's how it feels when you're one of these part of one of these fringe groups. Eventually, it feels like, hey man, I can't do anything right, fucking golly, you go cuckoo. Here's a Cocoa Puffs bird. You go cuckoo, man. This guy. Watch a video of him for the younger kids out there. Never seen a Cocoa Puffs commercial? Watch vintage commercials and Cocoa Puffs. This guy goes loopy. He goes real loopy. Pepsi didn't treat their workforce right. So when you boycott Pepsi, they own Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC. KFC has issues with hormones in their chickens. Here's a boneless chicken farm, another Far Side illusion. My battery's starting to blink. This might cut out. Monsanto has some of these genetic engineered foods, so now I can't eat tofu. Monsanto has 90% of the market on tofu. Okay? When I was part of the Union Summer deal in Seattle, and thinking I'm doing the right thing by eating vegetarian, I can't have Garden Burger, because Garden Burger had labor problems. I have to eat other non-meat products that substitute for meat, and that was back in Seattle. Nike. You can't wear Nike because kids kill each other. And also, it creates this classist system of hierarchy that, you're supposed to fight, definitely at a liberal school. You have a slave labor and child labor issue. Not to mention that the iPhone that I'm watching this thing on right here has suicide nets around their factory, supposedly in China. Okay, so here you have someone like Ronnie Moss. I watched on Russia Today recently. It said there's 6 places that people could boycott: Starbucks, Walmart, McDonald's, Amazon, Apple, Philip Morris, Yahoo, CVS. Okay, and here's the logos. And I'm not advocating this, actually. I'm advocating something sensible that's not going to drive you crazy. Okay? Something that's not going to drive you crazy. Okay? Pick and choose your battles. Bite off what you can chew. This is the BP oil spill. Okay, that's a bird there. BP runs Arco. That's fucking cheap gas, man. It's more than 10 cents a gallon, usually cheaper than everything else, man. What are people to do? I mentioned the Seattle Union people, okay, and I was part of the union summer for the AFL-CIO in '97. For some reason, they said boycott Starbucks. And Starbucks had a good reputation for treating their employees before I got there. And, you know, they pay higher, they have benefits, and now they have college online. So it makes you crazy. It makes you fucking crazy. Clear Channel. Clear Channel's manipulating our minds. This is mind control. You know? Alright? Crazy, right? And we got 5 companies that run the whole fucking planet now, since the deregulation in the 90s. You got AOL, Time Warner, Disney, Bertelsmann, News Corp, and Viacom. And here's crazy people and Time Warner there, Disney, News Corp. Okay, this is Homer Cocktail vlogging. I'm continuing my vlog. My battery light started flashing. And before that, it said I had about 10 or 15 minutes left on my indicator. I was talking about how the conglomerates, the big media people, how they control a crap load of what we see and what we do since the deregulation in the 90s, right before I got cut off. When I got cut off unexpectedly. But I'm almost done, and this is probably going to wind up being about an hour. So let's find the pillow that this was on. Here we go. It's good enough right here. Okay. Okay, so I was talking about AOL, Time Warner, Disney, Bertelsmann, News Corp. And we were going through the logos. I think this is where we were. And along those lines, the banks have the same thing going on. 6 banks made $51 billion last year. The other 980 lost money. And what are those banks? J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Wells Fargo. And there's J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo. Okay, so we're talking about all these boycotts. We're talking about cutting down on cutting down on red meat, going vegetarian possibly. We're talking about doing the boycott of course for labor and Pepsi and grapes and Hasbro and Revlon and all these places, right? And then, what else are we going to boycott? The U.S. government? Right? You know what the congressional approval is? It's real low. We're talking about something like I think it was 13% at the beginning of the year. It was down to 5% during the impasse, the budget impasse in November of 2013. You know, that's pretty recent. Look at this guy right here. Look at this guy. Okay, conflict of interest. Got the Halliburton stuff. Halliburton, by the way, did the BP oil platform. I don't know if you know that. And these guys lobby against regulation. Okay? Like I understand if they had this acoustic switch, which every other platform has in every other country, costs $100,000 or something. You know, they're cutting corners, saving money, and they spend billions. They want to spend billions. But it's not just the Republicans, right? We got Hillary Clinton here. She's real tight with the Council on Foreign Relations. And she's talking real hard on Russia lately, and she's talked jokingly with James Baker about going to war with Iran. And I think she's one with the military-industrial complex. So is this conspiracy? This is the Skull and Bones insignia. If you remember, John Kerry and George Bush were going to Yale at the same time. They were both part of this secret crowd. It's nothing but Ivy Leaguers, East Coast Ivy Leaguers, that wind up as president and in these real big positions. William Cooper got killed a little more than a month after 9/11, and he wrote a book called Behold a Pale Horse that you could get. Here you got Senior Bush. Remember when he's talking about New World Order, NWO? There's a real good documentary on Senior Bush. It says he was in Dallas, possibly working for the CIA. You could watch this on Netflix. That's where I watched Dark Legacy. I haven't watched part 2, but watched the original one. He was in Dallas when JFK was assassinated, November 22nd, 1963. So, alright, man. You do enough of this talking and blah, blah, blah. Illuminati's running everything, right? The Illuminati's running everything, right? Right? It's on our dollars, you know, these symbols, you know, Freemasons and Carlyle Group and Bilderbergs, and they're all interrelated. So, how do you still support this country? And that's the challenge. Because I used to love this country with all my heart, soul, and mind. But then you get issues, you know? When I was a kid, I remember this commercial about pollution and a Native American that's crying. And then you get this guy, a veteran, on the flag that's inverted. Inverted flag is a distress signal, by the way. There's no flag large enough to cover the shame of killing innocent people. That's what's written on that flag. Okay. Here's prisoners in Guantanamo. Okay, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. We got soldiers pissing on Taliban right there. We got Iraqi soldiers. Is this Abu Ghraib, where they're pretzeled? See, Iraq, pretzels. So, when you go to school that teaches social consciousness, it gets hard to exist. And now you got the drones that are killing. They have a 2% success rate. They're killing innocent civilians. You know, they're creating terrorists. Every time you kill an innocent civilian, you get people ticked off, right? So we got this country that, in my lifetime, has become more like Pinocchio than I like him to be. You got the Twin Towers. What was that? Guy on dialysis far away in the Afghan cave? Because that's what a lot of people think. And his buddy Saddam Hussein? Was it that? Here's a mangled steel, which is not indicative of the kind of fall and the kind of destruction that happened there. And for more than 90 days, there was a molten steel burning at ground zero. That doesn't happen with jet fuel and office furniture. Okay? Here at ground zero, you have one of the steel beams, which is indicative of a controlled demolition, for example. You have white fire coming from the sides, which is indicative of a hotter fire, possibly with a thermite or nanothermite inside. And then, hey man, Google this, dude. There is no wreckage at the Pentagon. Okay? Google plane wreck. Okay, this Malaysia thing that just happened, MH17, that had wreckage. UPS Airbus last year in Georgia, that had wreckage. How come there was no wreckage at the Pentagon? Or at Shanksville? Okay? Okay, there's no wreckage at Shanksville either. Okay? And there's a word called predication. If we are to believe the so-called official story, then a lot of things are justified, like the wars we are in. But if the story of what happened on the day of 9/11 was a sham, then we got to consider, okay? Too much lying going on, right? But here's the common person, okay? And I'm trying to go mainstream again. But the common person is just, you know, ready, willing, you know, trying to stay in line and, you know, say the thing the media wants you to say, right? Okay, so what's America? Here's apple pie right here. Got apple pie. Here's a double from In-N-Out Burger. These things taste so fucking good, man. Had one of these after a Rush concert. After in Irvine Meadows. Motherfucker, these things are good. That's when I started eating them with the grilled onions and raw onions together. Okay, Dr. Pepper. That's American's Dr. Pepper, right? Okay. Well, we're kind of more fantasy land, and, you know, hey, the Keebler elves make our cookies. We all know that's not true, but we should know the other things aren't true as well. The 9/11 issues, we should understand the science behind it. We should understand NORAD had a drill going on the day of 9/11. We should understand a lot of these issues. And the common person doesn't understand what AE 911truth.org, that's architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. So you guys should go out there and check out these sites if you haven't already done so. Okay? Do babies come from storks? A lot of us believe so. If we're kids. We were born in the 50s, I don't know. We move on though, okay? I'd love to believe that Hanali is out there. And I could party out there with Puff the Magic Dragon. I would love that. And mentally, hey, that's fine, man. I'm all for suspension of belief. But during our hour in and hour out existences, you know, let's go a little beyond this, okay? My machine cut off because the battery went dead, and this is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour long. It's a little dark right now, but I'm going to go outside and see if there's any sunlight left. When I started filming, the sun was just going down. I'm feeling good. I got the lights from the neighbors out there. It's a little after 8 o'clock. I said that this would be a little longer than what's typical. Usually cut myself off at 10 minutes. There's a party going on down the street. There's a lot of Spanish music out here where I'm at in Fontana, California. This place was predominantly Caucasian when I graduated high school 25 years ago. Yeah, you know, I'm fine with the changes, but, you know, so many other changes in life, like the 9/11 thing, you know. I can go out and have a hamburger right now, though. And that's why I started this vlog to begin with. It's because I went to that school, Pitzer, and it felt too much like a cult. And there were 3 reasons that I gave for going vegetarian. Health, you live longer. Animal rights, you know. Butchering can be unpleasing to think about, you know. And ecological footprint. We can feed the hungry if we choose to, you know. It takes 7 times more land to raise cattle than it does to feed people with simple grain. Okay, so I'm glad you guys stuck around this long. My name's Eddie Corona. I go by Homer Cocktail, and maybe we'll see each other out there someday. You have a good time. Hope you enjoyed the Homer Cocktail Hour.